is Intern here at Bambike Tours. So it's my pleasure to be your tour guide for the day. And also, I would like to thank all of you for choosing Bambike to fulfill your tour needs. Because Bambike is a social enterprise wherein it helps a Filipino-based community here in the Philippines called Walled Kalinga. So our company promotes sustainability by producing bikes made out of bamboos. And by you guys being here and availing our tours, you're actually helping the community, the livelihood of the employees, and the scholarship program of the company. Okay, so in case you're wondering where we are in Intramuros. Okay, so this is the 1730 map of Intramuros. So this 54-hectare city was actually settled by the Spaniards when they started to colonize the Philippines in 1571. Okay, but take note that Intramuros was not yet established at that time since this city was a Muslim settlement. Okay, so have you seen the walls around the city already? Yeah. Right, so the walls around the city were built because in 1574, a Chinese pirate named Lima Hong came here, attacked, and burned the whole city down. Because he was unsuccessful on defeating the Spaniards. That's why he had a thought in mind that if I can get the Intramuros to the Spaniards, neither can they. That's why he burned the whole city down. And the walls around the city were built for defense against future invaders. And the Spaniards took them 250 years to finish the walls around the city. Okay, so after finishing the walls around the city, the Spaniards also built a bodies of water before the walls, right here. And this is a map showing that. This one right here. And this is what we call the moat. Okay, so are you guys familiar with the moat? So the moat is like waters around the castle, and it was built by the Spaniards for additional defense with crocodiles in it. But you can no longer see the moat now because when the Americans started to colonize the Philippines, they started to fill this moat with land. Because back then, the moat is actually causing health issues, just like cholera and malaria. And eventually, they made it into a 9-hole golf course, which we can see to it on our next stop. Okay, so Intramuros is derived from two Latin words. Intra, meaning inside, and muros, meaning wall. So basically, Intramuros means the walled city, or the city inside the walls. And it was heavily damaged during the World War II. That's why in 1979, Intramuros administration was established. So that is a government agency here in the Philippines under the Department of Tourism. And they are responsible for the preservation and restoration of the whole Intramuros. And we are now currently at the central part of Intramuros, which we can see our first stop right here. So this whole building right here, everyone, is what we call the Casa Manila. So Casa Manila is bahay na bato or stone house. So bahay in Filipino means house, and bato in Filipino means stone. So there are residential houses around Intramuros during the Spanish colonial period, but because of the wars and battles that has happened here, those residential houses were destroyed. And the Intramuros administration decided to build Casa Manila in 1981 to show to people on how is the lifestyle of the higher class back then. And this is actually a replica of a house of a Chinese wealthy man who resided here in Manila. And this is the picture of the original house. Right, so at the lower part of Casa Manila, it is made out of adobe rocks or stones that came from the volcanic eruption to be durable at calamities just like earthquakes and typhoons. And knowing the Philippines is near at the Pacific River fire, those calamities are very common. And at the upper part, you will see that it is made out of light materials, just like wood. So air conditions was not a thing back then. That's why you will also see big sliding wooden windows so that the air can go in and can go out. So basically, it's for ventilation purposes. And now, the Casa Manila is a service commercial complex. That's why you will see different businesses around here, like different coffee shops or cafes, different restaurants, some souvenir shops, and of course, the office of Bambike.
So ito na, start na nung Bambike tour. So ayan, first time experience Bambike sa Intramuros. Actually kasama ko pamilya ko ngayon. So ikot-ikot lang dito sa Intramuros. Merong nag-lead ng tour ngayon. So mga nasa Siam yata kami. And then meron pang isang spotter nung Bambike. Nandiyan lang. Ayun. Nasa unahan sila pareho. First stop is Baluarte de San Diego. Ano yung pupuntahan namin ngayon. So yan yung alam kong pinakauna na fortification na ginawa dito sa Intramuros, ang Baluarte de San Diego. Diyan yung unang breach na naganap nung inatake ng British yung Manila 1762. Bagong structure. So yan na, Baluarte de San Diego. Parang kung makakapasok kami niyan. Baka hindi. Stop lang. Stop.
Mag-entry muna ako ng bahay. So after the Spaniards colonized the Philippines for 333 years, the Philippines was sold for $20 million to the Americans. And that's when the US colonial period happened in 1898. And they actually raised a flag here to show to people that the Philippines is under them. And this is the picture. So the US flag was raised at Fort Santiago, which is another heritage and historic site here in Intramuros. One of the highlights of Intramuros, actually. Okay. So even though the Philippines has independence to the Spaniards, we were still colonized by the Americans. So maybe let's gather around here inside the station. As I was saying, so even though the Philippines has its independence to the Spaniards, we were still colonized by the Americans. But during the American colonial period, that's when the Japanese came into the picture. So the Japanese bombed the US naval base, which is the Pearl Harbor. And 10 hours after the bombing, they started to go here, attack, and bomb Intramuros as well. And eventually, the Americans and Filipinos surrendered the Philippines to the Japanese. And that's when the Japanese colonial period happened. Okay, so a little backstory. The original battle was just between the Americans and the Japanese. So the Americans sold limited oil supply to the Japanese. And the reasons of the Americans is that they don't want the thought on helping the Japanese on expanding their influence on other countries. That's why they sold them limited oil supply. And of course, when the Japanese found that out, they got really angry about it. And they also found out that the Americans were here in the Philippines. That's why they started to attack the Philippines as well. So basically, Philippines was just a victim between the Americans and the Japanese. But when the Japanese saw that they have a potential on expanding their influence here, they colonized the Philippines for 3 years. But during the Japanese colonial period, General Douglas MacArthur ordered the Americans to recapture the Philippines. And that's when the Battle of Manila happened. So the Battle of Manila happened from February 3 to March 3, exactly 1 month in 1945. So this was between the Americans and Filipinos against the Japanese forces. And this is widely considered as one of the worst tragedies that happened during the World War II. Since this was 1 month of bombings here in Intramuros, it resulted into 80% of Manila was destroyed and 100,000 civilians were killed. And this was the state of Intramuros after the Battle of Manila. So as you can see here, at the upper corner right, there is an establishment that was not destroyed. And that is the San Agustin Church, or the church near the shop.
Why?
Alright.
Strategically, why?
So the Americans purposely avoided this since they
Because
are
they know it's a church.
No, and also they are making this as an hospital for their militaries back then.
Okay.
And during the Battle of Manila, the Japanese placed this Japanese cannon right here in 1945. So this Japanese cannon served as a coastal defense against the liberation forces. And there are 20 other cannons, but this is the only one left. And they eventually found this out after the World War II. Okay, so a little not so fun fact about this cannon. So 1 kilometer away from here, this Japanese cannon is actually facing the current U.S. Embassy here in the Philippines. And I have a map showing that. This red mark right here is the Japanese cannon. This gray mark is the U.S. Embassy. So it's really pointing.
So it's really strategically.
But the cannon was here before the embassy was established. So
Okay.
this red mark and gray mark right here. This red mark and gray mark right here.
Philippine government
Red mark
giving
and green mark.
land for a reason.
So this red mark and green mark right here. Huh? Alright, so let's move a little closer here, everyone. To see this field of land right here. So this is actually the southern part of the moon back there.
Okay, back to biking. Yan, single file. Single file lang daw para hindi tayo masyado nakakabala kasi meron ting mga ibang sasakyan dito eh. So time check, 3:30 na ng hapon dito sa Intramuros. Yan, Moralia. Stop namin baka yung ano sa ano yun, Baluarte de San Andres. Ay hindi, lalabas sa Puerta yata, Puerta Real Gardens pupuntahan. Or papalabasin nyo talaga kami. Wow. Hindi, Puerta Real Gardens nga. Ayan o, Puerta Real. Puerta Real Gardens is yung dating aquarium, Manila Aquarium. Madilim. Cobblestones. Puerto Real. Anything like this in Indonesia? Like a fortification?
Have.
Which place?
A lot. In Jakarta also have. It's like an old city, right? Yeah.
Who built it? Dutch?
Dutch. You Spaniards, right? But our Dutch. English.
They like them that much, huh?
Yeah. I don't like it.
For the marketplace of the Chinese settlements here in Manila. And it was named after Parian de Arceros, or Chinese rice dealers market. And this pathway you see right here is the way to those Chinese settlements. Alright, so because of the threat that the Chinese pirate Limaho made, the Spaniards pulled out all of the Chinese community inside Intramuros and put them outside Intramuros. And that's why back then, we have two Chinese settlements here in Manila, which are Binondo and the Arceros Chinese settlement. So the Binondo Chinese settlement, that is where the Chinese who are converted into Catholics are. And they are required to share 10% of their taxes to the Spanish government. Those buildings you see right there, that is where the Binondo Chinese settlement was. While on the other side, the Aricero side, that is where the Chinese who are not converted into Catholics are. Because they don't want to share a part of their taxes to the Spanish government. So that building with the golden cap right there, that is where the Aricero's Chinese settlement was. Okay? Alright, so back then, the Spaniards really did not like the Chinese people. That's why they also built a rebellion right here with cannons in it, pointing to those two Chinese settlements. Because one wrong move of the Chinese, or whenever they plan to rebel against the Spaniards will just simply shoot them and kill them by the cannon. But despite the Spaniards not liking the Chinese people back then, they still don't want them out completely, since they still need the Chinese for materials just like jade, silk, and other materials. Okay, and this is what the Puerta del Parian looks like. Back then.
Medyo sarcastic.
Alright, so now let's turn our attention to this garden right here. So this is the ASEAN Garden, which was dedicated for the Bangkok Declaration in 1967. And those monuments or statues you see right there are the fathers or the founders of the ASEAN. So the ASEAN's purpose, or the Association of Southeast Asian Nations' purpose, is to monitor their economic growth and to connect with each other. So this is not just a piece of beauty, but it is also a symbol of friendship and connection of those nations. So before this was filled with land, this was also a part of the moat back then. And when the Americans started to recapture the Philippines, they saw beneath this bridge was hundreds and piles of human skeletons. So that just shows on how tragic the Battle of Manila was. And I have here a picture of the skulls and bones that were found and the bridge right here. The skulls and bones that were found and the bridge right here. Show you a map so that you could visualize on where we are. So we are here at the ASEAN Gardens at the Cannons.
Meron ng gano'n. Madala mo nyo kasi parang may gano'n.
On the left side is the Binondo, and on the right side is the ASEAN, which is Alright, so here is a map, and we are here at the ASEAN Gardens, and the cannons are pointing to the two Chinese settlements. Here on the left side is the Binondo, and at the right side is the Ariceros, which is now a forest park.
Sa tabi. Letran. So nung pagkatapos ng World War II, nung Battle of Manila, durog-durog yan. Kawawa ang Letran kasi malapit lang siya sa sa riverbank ng Pasig. Tapos yung direct fire ng mga Amerikano galing yun dun sa kabila. Dun nila nilagay yung mga heavy artillery pieces nila, tapos binabanatan nila yan. Sa kabila, Chamber of Commerce sa labas, Puerta de Isabel.
There's also a theory that the Filipinos were the children of King Philip II, and the Manila came from two Tagalog words, May, meaning there is, and Mindan, meaning indigo. Because back then, this city was producing purple dye. So there is a plant located at the Pasig River, which produces purple dye.
Papasok sa Fort Santiago. Nice. Welcome back, Fort Santiago. Ayan, so meron pang moat dito. Ito na lang yung section na yun eh. Ay, baka lalabas pa pala tayo doon sa ano, sa Esplanade, sa Riverbike. Baby, may ano dyan, bata.
Of the Fort Santiago. So as I mentioned earlier, before Intramuros was established, this was a Muslim settlement, and this Muslim settlement was led by Raha Sulaiman. So Raha Sulaiman was a Filipino Muslim who led the Muslim settlement, and she had a wooden castle inside Fort Santiago, and the Spaniards get that wooden castle from her but did not destroy it. It was only destroyed when the Chinese pirate Limaho burned the whole city of Intramuros. So the first construction of the walls was actually here at Fort Santiago first, before other parts of Intramuros. That is because inside Fort Santiago was the military fortress of the Spaniards. And Fort Santiago was named after Saint James Santiago, or what they believe as the Muslim slayer. That guy at the top right there. And the men beneath the horse symbolizes the Muslims that he had slain or he had killed. Okay, so upon going inside Intramuros, inside Fort Santiago, we will be learning more about the imprisonment of our national hero. Where did the leader of the Spaniards escape? And then the dungeons. And this is a picture of the gate when it got destroyed during the battles.
Yun, so nasa loob ng Fort Santiago ngayon. Ayan. Ayan yung Rizal Shrine sa loob ng Fort Santiago. And Raha Sulaiman Theater.
Meron na kasi masahin mo.
Wow, papasok ulit.
River, a very polluted river now. But back then, people used to catch fish, swim, and do aquatic activities there. But over the centuries, it became polluted. So no matter how many cleanup drives they make, they can still clean because on how wide the Pasig River is. So this pathway you see right here is the Postigo del Nuestra Señora de Soledad. So back then, when Philippines was still an unknown island, there was a group of Spaniards who discovered Manila, led by Simon de Anda. And Simon de Anda, this is his way out when the war between the Spaniards and British were happening. So he went through this path, rode on a ship, and sailed away just to escape the war. And in case you're also wondering, why does the Spaniards chose Manila or Intramuros among all islands in the Philippines to occupy first? That is because it's more convenient for them. So back then, so the Spaniards were looking for the purple dye. Do you guys remember the Nilan plant earlier? Okay, so that was one of the reasons why they chose Manila. And also Manila is rich in natural resources, just like zinc, nickel, and other resources. And back then, we have no modes of transportation beside water transportation. And Manila or Intramuros is beside the Pasig River. And that's why they chose Manila or Intramuros for their convenience. Okay, so now let's proceed right here. So please follow me. Let's move a little closer, everyone. So that you guys could meet Charlie Chaplin. No, I'm just kidding. So this is our considered national hero, Dr. Jose Rizal. So this is Dr. Jose Rizal, everyone. So Dr. Jose Rizal was a nationalist and a writer. So since he is a writer, he published 2 novels when he was studying medicine in Europe, which were Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, its sequel. So before this was a dungeon, this was actually a military storage camp of the Spaniards back then. But since it's beside the Pasig River, every time the Pasig River is on high tide, the water will go inside, will be flooded, and malfunction those military equipments. And that's why the Spaniards decided to build Baluarte de Santa Barbara as their new military storage camp. And when the Japanese came here to the Philippines, they see this empty space as an opportunity to be their prison camp. And that's why when the Americans started to recapture the Philippines, they saw inside the dungeon was around 600 decomposing bodies. And those around 600 decomposing bodies were pulled out inside the dungeon and buried underneath this white cross.
This one.
Right?
It's that.
Yeah.
It's a mass grave.
So this white cross is not the mass grave of those around 600 decomposing bodies. Okay, so a little trivia about the dungeon. So before this was opened as a tourist destination or tourist attraction, this was usually used to be a closed space back then. So the windows and exits you will see inside were not constructed before. And this entrance is also the exit. Okay, and if you remembered Battle trapped inside during that one month. And that's why all of them died out of suffocation, dehydration, and starvation. And this is a picture of some of the bodies that were found inside the dungeon after the World War II. Alright, so thinking about the situations of the victims is very sad and tragic to think about. Okay, so upon entering inside the dungeon, just a little heads up, you will see more graphic images of what the Americans saw when they started to clean up the whole Intramuros. But before going inside, please make sure to wash your head instead. And before going inside, is any one of you claustrophobic? None? Alright, so I will be waiting for you outside since I'm afraid of tight spaces. Okay, so upon entering, please wash your head instead. I'll be waiting for you outside.
Right, second time na pupunta dito sa dungeons. It's wet. Almost 5. So basa nga talaga doon sa loob. Babasa siya. Yeah, it's the Pasig River outside.
Yeah.
Dami nagtatapon ng barya. Delpan Bridge, Sentry Box. Falsa Briga, daming scaffolding. Pasig River, Binondo. tayo doon sa taas ng Falsa Braga. Medyo Naranja. So actually ito yung bibig ng Pasig River nun. Yan yung bibig niya. May pusa. Doon pa yung bunganga na ngayon ng Pasig River, pero dati nung panahon ng Kastila dito lang yan sa may dulo ng Fort Santiago. Okay, here we are. Last leg. Going back to Casa Manila. Lots of people. It's weekend. Last stop, San Agustin Church, UNESCO World Heritage Site. Church of San Agustin, oldest stone church in the Philippines. Kanina may kasalan eh.
Was also first constructed in 1571, but again, because of the Chinese maritime where the whole city of Intramuros, the first construction got destroyed, and the second construction was destroyed by a lamp candle inside the church, and the third construction was finished in 1607, but after that.
Tawag na malamig.
Highly recommended Bambike tours. Please check them out. Intramuros, Casa Manila. Drop by Bambike. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, History by Bike. Thank you very much.